Hey, welcome to Skid Row Offroad. Today we'll be installing the transmission skid plate with cat guards for the 1999 to 2006 model Toyota Tundra and the 2000 to 2007 model Toyota Sequoia. Those two vehicles are virtually identical from the front bumper back to the transmission crossmember, and so they utilize the same skid plates in those areas. So follow me to the shop and I'll show you how to get one installed. When you first get your skid plate out of the box, you're going to find that we have the cat guards bolted to the skid plate itself. You want to make sure that they don't get lost in shipping. So you're going to have to take those off of the skid plate. You'll be reusing the hardware. You'll also find a small package of hardware zip tied to the skid plate. Take a pair of dikes and cut the bag of hardware from the side of the skid plate. Hopefully it stayed in position through its trip to you. Go ahead and set that aside. Take that zip tie off. And then you'll take a 1/2-inch wrench and you can take the cat guards off of the skid plate. Don't lose this hardware because you'll be reusing it. And don't forget, you get yourself a Skid Row Offroad bumper sticker. Put it on your toolbox or maybe on the back of your truck. Now, take this bag of hardware, tear it open, and get this little card out. That card is the part number of the product you bought. On the other side of the card is a QR code, there you go, along with the website address where you can find the instructions in PDF format on our website. You can print them out or just follow them along on your phone. Now that you've got the catalytic converter guard removed from the skid plate, you can bolt it right back on. The wide part of the converter guard is going to go at the narrow end of the skid plate. It'll bolt on right on the side, just like this, and obviously one on each side, and you'll be using the same hardware that held the converter guard to the skid plate, plus a couple of extra bolts that are included in the hardware bag. Okay, now you're ready to get it assembled. Take one of the cat guards, one of your carriage bolts, and you're going to put the round head to the outside. Run that through the skid plate, flat washer, lock washer, and then nut. And then move on to the next. And again, we're using flat washer, lock washer, and then nut. And we have one more in the middle. And we put the flat washer first so that the lock washer doesn't dig in to the finish on the skid plate. Just another way to prevent rust over time. Although, of course, they are skid plates. If you use them off-road, they're going to get scraped up. So it's something you might want to pay attention to and touch them up every now and again with some semi-gloss black paint. I usually use a Rust-Oleum, it's an all-in-one primer and paint. Works pretty good. There you go. Now we'll get the other side and we can get it installed. Now before you lift the skid plate up in place, you might want to check these threaded holes in the frame. They're right ahead of the steering rack, and there's one on each side, there it is, of the vehicle. Now if you haven't had a skid plate installed on this vehicle ever, or at least not recently, you may find that these holes have dirt or maybe even rust built up in them, and you're going to want to clean them out. So to do that, you grab an 8 by 1.25 millimeter tap, and you just run it up through, make sure they're good and clean. You got 2 holes there, make sure you get them both, because you don't want to strip out the threads, because that'd be very difficult to repair if you did. Now, the skid plate is a little awkward to get in place. It's heavy, I know. It's probably easier if you're on the ground using a floor jack rather than under a lift like this with one of these jack stands, but I'm sure you can get it, especially if you have the help of a friend. Once you have it roughly in place, you can align the 2 front holes up here with the threaded holes in the frame. Get these 2 bolts up front here installed, but don't tighten them, because you're going to want to be able to wiggle things around a little bit back here. You want the rear edge of the skid plate to be even with the rear edge of the transmission crossmember that you're attaching to. Now, those are not slots, so you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room to move. So I mean, it should be pretty well lined up once those 2 bolts are installed, but still, good idea to leave them loose before you raise the jack and tighten everything up against the bottom of the frame. Okay, now let's get this first bolt in. You have to wiggle the skid plate a little bit to get it lined up, but it should go right in. If you've cleaned the threads, that should go in very easily. We get the other one in, and it's not lined up, so let's go ahead and move it a little bit. And there we go. That looks better. It should go in pretty easily. There you go. Now that those 2 are in, and I don't think I want to tighten them just yet, but you can now lift the skid plate tight up against the bottom of the frame. At the back of the skid plate, you're going to have to drill 2 holes through the bottom of the transmission crossmember. There's a square hole here, and there's one over here. Now, there's one slight problem with this demonstration. I've already drilled the holes in this vehicle because it's my vehicle. It's the one that I designed parts off of. So, the holes were already there. Now, I could pretend to drill them, but I think that would probably be a little dumb. So, what I will say is this. It's a good idea, and probably the best idea, is to take a center punch. And you can get the right one, and it fits right in that square. And what that does is it gets that little point centered in the opening. So you mark the center, and then you go ahead and drill. Use an 1/8 inch drill first to start the hole. It works a lot easier. If you start with a small hole and then drill the larger hole later, it works much, much better. So start with an 1/8 inch drill bit, then move to the 3/8 inch drill bit that you finish this hole with. Then, once those holes are drilled, you can go ahead and install one of the carriage bolts. That fits right up in there. There is a large hole already in the top of the crossmember, so you only have to drill through the bottom surface. So it's not really hard. Okay, well that's stuck for some reason. There we go. I'm not sure why that was stuck. And then we'll take one of the large washers, go ahead, put that on. That needs to be large enough, and it is large enough to cover that hole that's already in the top of the crossmember. Now, in this installation on my own vehicle, I'm going to use just a regular lock washer and a nut. But for those who have ordered the transmission skid plate with cat guards, what we provide are these little nylock nuts. They're more difficult to install, but that also makes them more difficult to remove. And since I just mentioned it, this is a set of transfer punches. You can see they come in a variety of sizes for transferring holes of different sizes to other parts. And I use these all the time. They are so handy. Yeah, there's probably a few sizes that I use more than others because I do a lot of 3/8 inch holes for the hardware that I use for skid plates. But yeah, like I said, variety of sizes. You don't have to get a top quality brand. I honestly don't even know where these came from anymore. I've had them for so long. Although I do recognize this is a cheap, inexpensive, made in China brand. And you can get these just about anywhere. And so I highly recommend getting a set. They're a tool that you'll use all the time that you never even knew you needed, but you'll like having them. I've included a link in the description below so you can get a set for yourself. Once you've got both of these bolts installed, just go ahead and tighten them. And once those two are tight, now go ahead and tighten up the two bolts at the front of the skid plate. If this video has helped you with the installation of your transmission skid and cat guards, or if it has helped you to decide to get a set from us, that's fantastic. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit like on this video. You may even consider subscribing to our channel. We've also done a video on the installation of the transfer case skid on the Sequoia, and we'll be doing other videos installing our other products such as the oil pan skid plate or the front skid plate for the Tundra and Sequoia. And anytime we create something new for these vehicles, we'll let you know through videos like this one. So let's finish up this install so we can take this rig out. Once those 4 bolts are all tightened, you're done with the install.